Penn's Quaker Principles. In Pennsylvania, Virginia, the Carolinas, farmers, hunters, and adventurers followed the Indian groups up the slopes of the southern Appalachians, the Blue Ridge, over the Cumberland Gap. The Virginians pressed relentlessly for more land, while the more diverse foreign invasion of Pennsylvania featured, among others, peaceful Quakers and tidy Germans. Stephen Ambrose wrote in his book, Undaunted Courage, I quote, "The Virginians' lust for land and their resulting rage for speculation can only be marveled at. Before the Revolution, George Washington owned tens of thousands of acres in the Tidewater and Piedmont, and over 63,000 acres of Trans-Appalachia. Jefferson inherited more than 5,000 acres in the Piedmont from his father. From his wife, he got another 11,000 acres, and though he was a substantial landowner, he was not a great one by Virginia standards." By contrast to the English, in Ambrose's account, the mostly German immigrants settling down in the Shenandoah Valley struggled without slaves by their own sweat and sacrifice to make smaller plots of territory productive. One particular Algonquin tribe, the Delaware or Lenape, signed a peace treaty in 1681 with William Penn, a sympathetic Quaker. In 1680, Penn petitioned for lands along the Delaware River north of Maryland. The Charter of Pennsylvania was signed in March 1681. The form of government in the colony was left to the proprietor, Penn. Disputes within the purportedly congenial congregations eventually led to the separation of Pennsylvania and Delaware, even as the surrounding territory gave way to thousands of other Europeans. By 1685, the region was made up of Quakers from England, Mennonites from the Rhineland, Swedes, Scotch, Irish, and French. Another Quaker, Edward Hicks, used Benjamin West's famous painting rendition of the meeting of Penn and the Indians to illustrate his own vision of the holy experiment and of communities living in harmony and peace. But like some of the white settlers, peaceful Indians morphed into warlike dissidents. Initially, the Delawares attempted to imitate the ploy of non-resistance and neutrality, but only generated resentment from the English, who suspected collusion with the French, and disdain from the Iroquois. A controversial chieftain called Captain White Eyes of the Ohio Turtle Clan shepherded the peace party. A Captain Pipe emerged in the Revolution favoring negotiation with the knife. According to Ellis, White Eyes scorned the Iroquois designs on behalf of the British. I quote, "I know you look upon us as a conquered nation, as your inferiors, as women, made such by you, that we shall wear petticoats. But look at me. Am I not a full-grown man, and am I not in the dress of a warrior? Do I not carry a musket the same as you? And," waving his hand toward the Allegheny, "all that is mine." A British governor near Detroit at one point refused White Eyes' offering of wampum belts, cutting them to pieces and throwing them to the ground. "And you," he said, "if you value your life, will leave here within half an hour." Captain Pike's dream of the destruction of the Americans took hold. Historian Parkman recounts in his diaries, "The tribe, the Delawares, once the peaceful allies of William Penn, the tributaries of the conquering Iroquois, are now the most adventurous and dreaded warriors of the prairies. They make war upon remote tribes, the very names of which were unknown to their fathers in their ancient seats in Pennsylvania. And they push these new quarrels with the true Indian rancor, sending out their little war parties as far as the Rocky Mountains and into the Mexican territories. Their neighbors and former Confederates, the Shawnees, who are tolerable farmers, are in a prosperous condition, but the Delawares dwindle every year from the number of men lost in their warlike expeditions." According to Angie Debo's account, yet another harried tribal group, the Tuscarora, faced displacement by force from other tribes and the Carolinian settlers, who apparently were abducting Indian children for their slave trade. The Tuscarora sent a delegation to Pennsylvania Governor Penn in 1710. Quaker largesse and sympathy was their hoped-for ticket to greater peace and security. The native representatives presented 8 belts of wampum to the governor's commissioners. Debo explains, "The first belt, the elder women and mothers asked the friendship of the Christian people, the Indians, and the governor, so they might fetch wood and water without risk of danger. The second belt, the children born and about to be born implored room for sport and play without fear of death and slavery. The third belt, the young men asked the privilege of leaving their towns to hunt for meat for their mothers, the children, and the aged ones without fear of death or slavery. The fourth belt, the old men, elders of the people, asked for peace, so the forest might be as safe as their palisaded towns. The fifth belt, the whole tribe asked a lasting peace. The sixth belt, the chiefs asked for peace with Pennsylvania, so they could be relieved from the fearful apprehensions of the past several years. The seventh belt, the Tuscaroras asked for a cessation of murder and capture, so they would not fear, quote, a mouse or anything that rustles the leaves, unquote. The Eighth Belt, the tribe, being strangers to Pennsylvania, asked for an official path or means of communication with its people. Debo suggests that the Quakers were only lukewarm in their reception of a new tribe at their doorstep. Some Iroquois Seneca members had been at the 1710 meeting and took the plight of the Tuscaroras to the Iroquois Confederacy instead. It was this encounter that led to the admission of the Tuscaroras into the Five Nations League, making it 6 nations, and their migration northward as a result.